Tonight's program is about early Tyler jazz and two very interesting African American families. We'll listen for a while, then I'll talk for a while, and we'll listen again to the sound of Tyler in 1929 on into the early 1930s. Just think of it as one of the sounds of the East Texas oil boom. So first, here's the Eddie and Sugarloo Stomp from October 24th, 1929. It's about 3 minutes long, which is about a typical length of one of their pieces. This one is an instrumental. Others will start instrumental and end with a vocal. They're all a little bit scratchy, and there are some very tiny skips. But after all, they were done in 1929 and 1930. Wikipedia calls Eddie and Sugarloo style early blues tinge jazz, which hits it pretty well when you listen to all 10 of their surviving recordings. All of them can be heard on the website redhotjazz.com. But first, let's start with the families of the two band leaders, Eddie Fennell and Sugarloo Morgan, whose real name was Charles Morgan. Some of the paper records don't agree on detail of Eddie Fennell's father's life, but I'll go with the census as my primary source. Larry B. Fennell, Eddie's father, was born in Macon County, North Carolina in 1854, which of course was in the time of slavery. Macon County is in the mountains southwest of Asheville. I can't find him anywhere in the 1870 census, but in the 1880 census, Larry Fennell is age 26 in Leon County, Texas, which is Centerville, south of Buffalo. There are quite a few other black Fennells in that area as well, including Larry Fennell Sr., age 73, Simon Fennell, age 22, Thomas Fennell, age 22, Joseph Fennell, age 21, and daughter Nancy Gilmore, age 29, all born in North Carolina. Grandchildren were born in Texas starting in 1871. There is also one white Fennell family in Leon County, James Gaston Fennell, age 37, also from North Carolina, but he evidently lived on the coast during the Civil War. I don't know if the two families are connected or not. In the 1880 census, Larry Fennell Jr., age 26, was married to Sylvester or Sylvester, I've seen it both ways, age 22, born in Texas. And they had a daughter, Anna, 6, a son, Hanson, at least I think that's what it is, it's hard to read, age 4, and daughter, Fanny, age 1. Of course, the 1890 census burned, so we next pick them up in the 1900 census in Smith County. According to Larry Fennell's death certificate, they made the move in 1889. They co-bought a plot at Westview Cemetery in 1897, and then a lot at 1617 East Locust, which happens to be the parking lot in front of Greenberg Turkeys. In 1900, Larry Fennell was 47 and a Baptist preacher. By that time, he and Sylvester had had 13 children, with 8 still living. Listed at home were daughter Annie Mosley, 24, a married dressmaker, Melissa, 18, Elizabeth, 16, Janie, 11, Joseph, 5, Fanny, 4, Thomas, 3, and future musician Eddie L., age 1. Also a grandson, John Manning, 4 months. The 1910 census adds a little brother, Stacy. Records also indicate that between 1903 and 1905, L.B. Fennell pastored the New Hope Baptist Church in Alto, and at some point prior to 1919, led New Mount Olive Baptist Church in Rusk. I'm not sure how that timeline works out, but suffice it to say that Eddie Fennell, jazz musician, was a Baptist preacher's son. He also completed 4 years of college, according to the 1940 census. World War I came, and older brother Tom Fennell volunteered for the American Expeditionary Forces. His enlistment card shows him as married, working as a porter at the Hotel Tyler on East Ferguson, and I'll get more into Hotel Tyler later. Tom and his friend Willie Vanoy Guthrie, a janitor at the telephone company and a member of the Hopewell Community Guthrie family, registered on the same day, June 5th, 1917. They both formally enlisted on June 19th, 1918, and headed to Camp Funston, Kansas, where they became part of Company F, 815th Pioneer Infantry. They shipped out for Europe in October 1918 and served with the First Army for the next 2 months. Tom told a reporter in 1930, "We had tired of our inaction behind the lines, and the boys were full of pep when the long-awaited order to move came up. We were being thrown into the thick of it, and everybody seemed glad of the chance to at last take a crack at the Germans. We had advanced to within 50 miles of the trenches, where we were to replace other soldiers who were worn out by days of service, when the news came to us that the war was over. 24 more hours, and we would have been in the middle of it." After the armistice, their primary responsibility with 2 other black regiments became gathering the bodies of American soldiers and creating the Meuse-Argonne American Cemetery. Tom Fennell was a sergeant in charge of 250 men and helped construct the large concrete wall along the front of the cemetery. They also had a musical band which, with others, effectively brought American jazz to Europe via France. The 815th Pioneer Infantry was present when General Jack Pershing came to inspect the cemetery during June 1919 and addressed 20,000 American black troops there. Tom and his friend Willie headed home to the United States the next month and demobilized at Camp Travis near San Antonio. On August 16, 1919, the Dallas Express, an African-American newspaper, wrote, "Tom Fennell and Willie Guthrie, two of Tyler's popular young men who spent several months as members of the best colored band going to France, had returned." For the 1920 Armistice Day celebration in Tyler, Tom had charge of a military company which drilled around the square in full uniform and carrying guns, receiving a great deal of applause from both black and white citizens, only 16 months after the Longview race riot of 1919. He must have been a great influence on his younger brother, Eddie. This is Tom Fennell's military tombstone in Westview Cemetery on West Irwin. I think the local Black American Legion unit, the Price Fennell Post, is named partially for Tom Fennell, but I can't get anyone to confirm that. Okay, another piece of music, Cruel Mama Blues.
Hoping my dreams will come true, and I'll be back with you, loving you dearly, and I'm both I've got so cruel Mama Blue.
Charles Sugarloo Morgan had an equally interesting family. His grandfather's name was Major Morgan, born about 1844. According to Sarah McClendon, Major had belonged to Reverend William Bonner and then Micajah Hubbard Bonner when they lived in Rusk, Texas. Sugarlou's grandmother's name was Effie, and she had been given to Elizabeth Patience Taylor when she married Micajah Bonner. Eventually, Bonner suggested that Major marry Effie, and the ceremony was in the Bonner's parlor. The Morgan children had the same names as the Bonner kids, such as Maddie and Hub for Hubbard, as well as girls named Effie. After emancipation, Effie and Major stayed with the Reverend William Bonners, but after 1880 moved to Tyler, where Micajah Bonner had moved when he became judge of the 7th District Court. They lived just blocks away from each other. The Bonners at the Bonner Winnaker McClendon home, facing Houston, and the Morgans at 405 South Vine, which is just south of Front on the west side. The families remained close, with some of the Morgans working for the Bonners and the Bonners lending public aid and support, and each family assisting the other in times of illness. Sugarlou's father was Major and Effie Morgan's oldest son, Hubbard, born about 1867 or 8. He married Maddie about 1888. By 1900, they lived at 721 West Front Street, basically where the Energy Center is, the one that used to be Exxon, and had 10 children, 5 still living: Major, Effie, Bonner, Janie, and Hubbard. Willis followed in 1901, and Charles, or Sugarlou, born in 1903. Hubbard Morgan worked mostly as a porter at Doctors Pope and Pope's office. In 1918, Sugarlou's aunts and uncles held occupations such as a fireman at the Cotton Belt Yards, 2 barbers, a teacher, and a grocer. According to Sugarlou's daughter, Jean Morgan Register, when Sugarlou was still a boy, he visited the local barbershop. Some of the older men there bet that Sugarlou could outplay Earl Father Hines on the jazz piano. They took him to Shreveport to compete. Sugarlou had to add soda cases to the piano bench to be high enough, but he outplayed Hines, who would later play with Louis Armstrong. When World War I came, Sugarlou, at age 13, was too young, but 3 of his older brothers registered for the draft. Major Bonner, age 26, was lame in his left hip. Bonner, age 23, had already lost one eye. And Hubbard, age 19, had lost one finger down a joint, so none of them were taken. When Tom Fennell divorced, remarried, and joined the African-American social scene in Tyler, as documented in the Dallas Express newspaper, his younger brother, Eddie, left for school in Pennsylvania in the fall of 1920. The next year, he sang a solo at the Smith County Institute at True Vine Baptist Church and at a funeral at Pleasant Grove Baptist Church. In 1923, Eddie directed a musical program at True Vine Baptist. His paying job was as a presser at the Hotel Tyler cleaning and pressing place, which is also where his brother Tom worked, while younger brother Stacy was a porter at Hotel Tyler. At that point, and for some years to come, the proprietor and manager of Hotel Tyler and the cleaning and pressing business was John L. Campbell. In the meantime, in 1922, Charles Morgan, already noted in the Dallas Express as Sugarlou, entertained the 1922 Emmett Scott High School graduating class at his parents' home on West Front. It may have been his own class. According to the 1940 census, Sugarlou completed 4 years of high school. The first documentation I have of Eddie and Sugarlou performing together at all is the grand opening of the Magnolia Cafe, owned by H.C. Calhoun and Will Cameron on East Irwin in May 1923. This seems to have been a black-owned business. I can document Will Cameron. I can't find H.C. Calhoun. Morgan and Moss were on piano, and Eddie Fennell contributed his sweet contralto. But there is no mention of an orchestra. Later that year, Eddie sang a sweet solo for the funeral of Mary Alexander, wife of Reverend H.C. Alexander of True Vine. Then in 1924, Eddie accompanied the Texas College Quartet on his ukulele at a meeting of the Alpha Civic and Art Group at Mamie Griffin's home. followed by a trip to Colorado where he made several hits singing. In 1926, he married Ionita Jeanette Haynes of Marion County, Texas. By March 1926, Eddie Fennell had formed a jazz band which played at a reception of the Retail Merchants Association at the Blackstone Hotel. The next month, the band of Doc Witt, Eddie Fennell, and the Dokey Melody Boys of Texarkana played for the ceremonials of the Dramatic Order Knights of Khorasan, otherwise known as the Dokies, a branch of the Knights of Pythias at Hotel Tyler. So they had no problem it being a sort of an integrated group. Eddie had graduated to calling his band an orchestra in late 1927 when they played twice at Willowbrook Country Club and for a Halloween masquerade out at Lake Park. He was also listing himself as a professional musician in the Tyler City Directory. There's no mention again of Sugarloo until early 1928. At that point, Eddie and Sugarloo's orchestra started a long-running gig at the Burns Roller Rink across from Camp Ford, which lasted at least through March of 1929. But they also played for a dance at the Blackstone and at the Spring-Fed Health Resort over at Rossboro Springs, 8 miles south of Marshall, as well as at the 13 Club, at their clubhouse on West Front, where the Highway Department is now. And another song. Sweet Papa Will Be Gone.
I'm tired of fussing and calling you down. Your trifling ways is the talk of the town. You played around inside a two-time beat. You caused such misery. Done everything that a sweet papa could. Done everything I should. Still you would not appreciate. Still it will be too late. You're gonna wake some morning. You'll be in mourning. But sweet papa will be gone. Gonna wake up sighing. You'll go crying. You'll be all alone. You used to call me your ace in the hole. But mama, sweet mama, you miss me jelly roll. You're gonna wake some morning, you'll be in mourning, but sweet papa will be gone. Call me sweet papa, papa, but mama, sweet mama, you miss me jelly roll. You're gonna wake some morning, you'll be in mourning, but sweet papa will be gone.
So who else was in Eddie and Sugarloo's orchestra? Jazz history experts say that other musicians drifted in and out. Red Hot Jazz gives one lineup as Eddie Fennell, banjo and vocal arranger, Eddie Sugarloo Morgan, piano, Stanley Hardy, trumpet, Adrian Kinney, alto and baritone saxophone, Albert Mitchell, trombone, Henry Thompson, trumpet, and Lee Scott, drums. Dave Oliphant, in the book Texan Blues, said that Harold Money Johnson, also born in Tyler, played trumpet in the orchestra in the early 30s before he went on to play with Nat Tolles, Horace Henderson, Count Basie, and Duke Ellington. Eddie and Sugarloo's orchestra hit the regional big time in 1929 when they changed their name from Eddie and Sugarloo's Orchestra to Eddie and Sugar Lou's Hotel Tyler Orchestra. They started playing on WKKH radio in Shreveport every other Sunday night from 10 p.m. until midnight, and they made their first recording. It's not certain why they changed their name, but quite possibly it was a sponsorship by John L. Campbell of Hotel Tyler. So, where was this Hotel Tyler and what did it look like? Hotel Tyler was on East Irwin, a half block off, that may be East Ferguson rather. East Ferguson, a half block off the square on the north side of the street before you get to the tracks. It would have been adjacent to the current Smith County Courthouse Annex. So you can tell the railroad tracks, Fanny, which became Fannin, and in front is going to be Ferguson, and then up the left side will be Spring. Here's a photo from when it was called the National Hotel, and a photo from when it was the Milner Hotel. By the end of December 1929, the Tyler Courier-Times Telegraph was calling them the famous Tyler Hotel Orchestra. This is a quote, "In the last 2 years, this local orchestra has made a name for themselves among both the older and younger sets. They are the latest when it comes to dance orchestras. For the past 6 months, they have been broadcasting from this popular Shreveport broadcasting station and have won themselves a nationwide reputation. Telegrams are received from many distant cities, and no more than half the numbers asked for can be taken care of. However, Eddie Fennell, manager of the orchestra, declares that all telegrams from Tyler will be first to be honored. Wire in and ask for your latest selection." Notice that at this point, the Tyler paper does not label them as a Negro or a black group, just a famous group. They were helping to put Tyler on the map. Eddie and Sugar Lou were so committed to KWKH, a radio station, KWKH radio station, that they named their top song the KWKH Blues. That was the first piece they recorded in Dallas for Vocalion, a label of Brunswick, on October 24, 1929. During the 20s, Vocalion had begun a series of race recordings marketed by and marketed to African Americans. Now, I'm not a musician, and I can't really evaluate Eddie and Sugar Lou's music other than to say, it's fun, and I like it, and it makes me want to dance. Jeffrey Wheeler in The Baritone Saxophone in American Recorded Jazz, 1926 to 1946, on the International Association of Jazz Records Collectors webpage, has this to say. "The sides recorded that day are decidedly rough in spots, with faltering intonation and sometimes weak execution. But it's hard not to like this band for its rompin', stompin', comin' at you barrelhouse style, punctuated by Morgan's two-fisted piano and Kenny's baritone in the background. As will be noted from the personnel, no brass or string bass was used on the date. Instead, Kenny's baritone, an unusual choice for such a small group, supplies some of the bottom a bass or tuba would normally provide as rhythm in recordings of this period, while continuously improvising his own melody line behind the lead soloist. Fennell's tenor vocals, Hardy on trumpet, Mitchell on trombone, and Morgan on piano. The flip side of KWKH Blues was Yo-Yo Blues. The second record included I Never Miss the Sunshine and There'll Be Some Changes Made. According to Family Stories, Sugar Lou wrote There'll Be Some Changes Made and sold the copyright for $15, with the buyer subsequently claiming he wrote it and then he made a mint off of it. However, that song was written in 1921 when Sugar Lou was 18 years old and recorded that year by Ethel Waters. It's possible, but perhaps he later sold a particular arrangement. Vocalion advertised KWKH Blues nationwide on March 1st, 1930. I found this same ad in 3 major African American newspapers. So it's Norfolk New Journal and Guide, Chicago Defender, which is going to be one of the main newspapers, and the Afro-American. They all ran that same ad for KWKH Blues. Brunswick and Vocalion also listed KWKH Blues in large advertisements in white newspapers, even as small as the weekly Tyler Journal. Okay, so we'll listen to KWKH Blues.
KWKH Blues. I got the KWKH Blues. So just tune in, baby, while they sing these blues to you. From my baby, there'll be pretty static around me.
Eddie and Sugar Lou continued performing around East Texas, at Willowbrook Country Club, at Terrell Military Academy, at Stewart's Lake near Lindale every Saturday night, playing the latest dance hits, at store openings such as Klein's Ladies Ready to Wear on the northeast side of the square, down at Mud Creek, and back at Stewart's Lake for an armistice dance. In November, the Hotel Tyler Orchestra went back to Dallas to record 4 more songs for Brunswick, now owned by Warner Brothers. Those were Cruel Mama Blues, Love Song Blues, Sorrowful Blues, and Sympathetic Blues. Live performances continued into the next year at local hotspots such as Driscoll Lake, the Blue Crystal Ballroom on the east side of the square, the grand opening of Old Southern Barbecue Stand, owned by Percy Thompson and Hugh Hill at Willowbrook, Club 13 again, and at the American Legion. 1933 brought the famous Cooper Club in Henderson, and at the Hotel Tyler Tavern. They also had a spot in the Tyler's KGKB radio station, the schedule at noon. In 1936-37, Tyler's city directory still listed both Eddie Fennell and Charles Morgan with the profession of musicians, but they were no longer being featured in advertisements or social news in the Tyler paper. In the mid-1936, Eddie Fennell, alone, was spotlighted as the new find of Maybe Smith, the Queen of the Blues. She called him the golden-voiced maestro. The 1937 city directory listed Fennell as a musician, but Sugarloo Morgan was not. I asked Sugarloo's daughter why they broke up, and she said that her father had been diagnosed with heart trouble, and the doctor had told him to get off the road and quit performing. Later that year, it was Eddie Fennell and his orchestra, then Eddie Fennell and his swing band, which is an entirely different genre, playing at the Cooper Club and in Denison. The 1938 city directory had them both employed as bellboys. Eddie at the Broadway Hotel and Sugarloo at the Blackstone. In 1940, Eddie was a waiter at Willowbrook and Sugarloo was still at the Blackstone. By the 1945 city directory, Eddie was a porter at Citizens National Bank, but Sugarloo, his wife Lillian, and his first two daughters had moved to Dallas, where his sister had been living for the past 10 years. By 1951, Eddie and his wife Ianita had moved to Los Angeles, possibly with others. There were enough local African Americans in Los Angeles in 1963 to have a Tylerite social club. Tyler folks certainly stick together wherever we go. Sugarloo's daughter, Jean Morgan Register, told me that Eddie and Sugarloo remained in touch after they both left Tyler. She remembers going with her father to Los Angeles to visit. I'm sure there was a piano and lots of memories shared there. Charles Sugarloo Morgan died on January 12, 1969, in Dallas, age 65. That's what it said anyway. With an occupation, and that one's probably right. You notice, I don't know if you can see it here, but he was brought back to Tyler for burial at Evergreen at the North Loop. His birth date is actually 1903. It says here 1916. I don't know if it was a mistake. The family didn't know, because when I asked his daughter when he was born, she said she didn't know. Or if Sugarloo had a little bit of vanity as a musician and just shaved off a few years. Eddie's wife, Ianita, died on July 24th, 1971 in Los Angeles, but I have not found Eddie's death date or the cemetery. Los Angeles is just so huge to try to research. It's pretty rough. The music of Eddie and Sugarloo's Hotel Tyler Orchestra has not been completely forgotten. In 1969, the Origin Jazz Library produced Byways of Jazz, featuring jazz from Alabama, Texas, Missouri, and Indiana, 1926 to 29. This album included 4 performances from Eddie and Sugarloo. In 1999, iTunes pulled together Southern jazz of the 30s and 40s, which included sorrowful blues. Or you can go to redhotblues.com and do a band search for Eddie and Sugarloo's and find 10 recordings. And this is how I ran into this story indexing the Tyler paper, and once the name just caught me. And I thought, I wonder if these guys ever amounted to anything. So I just Googled them and found this website and thought, oh, this is a program. However, unfortunately, I was never able to locate any photographs of the orchestra nor of Eddie or Sugarloo in their musical years, even from Sugarloo's daughter. But I have visions of Jack Ross, the black jazz singer, and his orchestra in Downton Abbey, just charming their way through East Texas. And I'll stick with that at least until something else turns up. And I want to close with, there'll be some changes made.
Say, Sug, what are you going to do? I'm going to keep my gal. Well, then there'll be some changes made, and how? your best friend. Nobody wants you when you're down and out. There'll be a change when I'm feeling so blue. Change when I'm longing, baby, just for you. Nobody wants you when you're all that gray. There'll be some changes made today. There'll be some changes made.